Today's episode is sponsored by Sandals Resorts and Brightco Insurance. What's up, Chillas? Today we have Dr. Melissa Green Carter, newlywed Dr. Melissa Green Carter, in with us today to talk about a lot of really important topics. So if you're over the age of 40, if you're a second or third time bride, if you're in the military, have a military spouse, or have dealt with trauma or a partner with trauma, we're going to be covering all these topics today. Dr. Melissa Green Carter, welcome to Bridechilla.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, start off by telling us about your company, the Resilience Studio, as well as your wedding wellness coaching with the Joyful Bride Collection.
As you mentioned, I am a newlywed. I just got married for a second time in June. And as I was planning my wedding, I realized there weren't a lot of resources and things that were marketed towards brides who are maybe getting married a second or third time, or brides who were older like me. When I got married, I was 53. Actually, I just turned 54 2 weeks ago. So,
happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. I thought, I really wanted to, support brides in general, but particularly those of us who really didn't seem to have a voice in the wedding industry, or not as much of a voice. So I started to pivot my work to work with older brides, or what I would like to call Encore brides who are getting married again, or radiant brides. So the Resilience Studio is focusing on wellness and supporting brides in the wedding planning process, as far as stress management and things like that.
And Lord knows it's a lot of stress. Something that you mentioned is that with your own journey with wedding planning over, the age of, so 53 when you were getting married, it being hard to find things in your market. And so how did you go about with your planning process and trying to weed through things that maybe were more geared towards Gen Z, for example?
The biggest thing that was a support for me, honestly, was Facebook groups, which sounds funny because people always joke about how Facebook is for old people. And it really was very helpful, actually. So I joined all these groups. I joked and said, I'm in a Facebook group for old brides, for Black brides, for Hawaii brides. So, because I live in Hawaii. So I was in a lot of Facebook groups, but they were very supportive, and they were actually very informative because my peer group really was not going through the same thing that I was going through. So I was actually able to learn what some of the needs were of the brides who were really more aligned with me and the things that I was going through. And I think that actually helped me to understand more about how I could support people who were going through the process, who may have been 40 and over. There are actually specific groups that are identified as the 40 and over bride.
Oh, that's really cool. And obviously it helped inspire you then moving forward with your career post-wedding. And shout out to the Bridechilla community, because we do have a Facebook group still that Alicia had created years ago, and it's still active. So you can feel free to check that out as well.
And that's funny. And I totally neglected the whole way that I found you was also it was
really?
Podcast too. Yeah, exactly. I don't even know why I didn't say that. Yes. So podcast, that's yeah, exactly. So I listened to a lot of podcasts as well. And that also was very supportive and informative. And so all of these things motivated me.
What were some of the concerns that you were finding, not just for yourself, but when you were in these community groups on Facebook?
I think one of the things that really stood out is that people did not feel like they deserved to celebrate themselves. And I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel good because I was excited and my family was excited. And I saw people posting in groups like, can I wear a veil or can I wear white? And I know people have always said things like, oh, is it okay for me to wear white because I'm getting married a second time or whatever? But people were asking permission to do things that, other people probably who are getting married the first time, they're not giving a second thought. They're like, should I go to a church or should I just go to the courthouse? Those kinds of things. So I felt like in doing wedding wellness coaching, I could really help to empower people to feel good about, celebrating themselves. And for some reason, I think my family, one, I think they wanted to come to Hawaii. So they were excited. So they were like,
who doesn't? Yeah.
Yeah, right. So they were really excited. But no, honestly, my family has always been very, very supportive. But I actually had friends, one in particular I remember, who said, if it were me getting married, and she's a year younger, she's like, my family would be telling me, not to have a wedding, that I'm too old for that. And I couldn't imagine that. That would be so devastating to me,
Right?
So yeah, so that was something that I saw, and I'm actually still in these groups. It's like once you get in those groups, it's like you have your community and you kind of stay in people. Because when I initially was in there, I was like, why are these people in there giving advice? And they said they got married like 2-3 years ago, but now I understand because you can kind of look back and help people, you know, through the process that are in a place where you were maybe like last year or a couple of years.
People don't have to feel alone. Like you went through that
Right.
situation, that struggle, like whatever the case may be. And that's wonderful that you have that and that you want to keep giving back in that way. Because I think you get so much when you give back, right?
Right, right. I think another thing too that I noticed that was definitely something that came up for me is that a lot of people were trying to figure out how to memorialize loved ones because, they're older and maybe have lost parents. Like both of my
Yeah.
parents are deceased, and my dad actually just died in 2023, and I'm a daddy's girl. And I realized like this is the first big event in my life that my dad's not going to be there. My mom died about 23 years ago. So I kind of gotten used to that.
But it's still hard.
Yes, it's definitely still hard. But my dad, I was like, oh my goodness. And even like when I got married the first time, I didn't go dress shopping. I had my dress made. And so I never had that experience. But then I went this time and I was by myself because I'm out here away from family. And when I went, I was like, oh, I want my mom. I didn't even know that I would have that feeling, right? And so that
Yeah.
was something that was coming up in the groups as well, is like how to memorialize people during a ceremony. Do you do it? Um, will it bring the group down? My own sister was like, maybe probably shouldn't do that because you're going to make everybody sad, right? But it was
Oh my
important.
gosh.
Yeah, it was important for me and my husband to make sure that we incorporated some type of memorial in our ceremony. So those are some big things that I've noticed, and I really want to be able to support people through that as they're planning.
I love that. And, I'm glad you're bringing this up with the memorializing lost loved ones. We actually did a whole episode dedicated to this months ago with Jamie Chang. So I encourage people to check that out a little bit more in depth. But that is something when you're older, you do have a lot more loved ones lost, which is also why we preach about photography and videography, because it's a way to look back. Because over the years, you're going to lose people that you care about. And it's a way to, go back and see that. But something else you said with that was like, with the dress shopping, things like that these moments will sneak up on you and you don't even realize it. Whether you're an older bride or a younger, couple, still, if you have a lost loved one or an estrangement or a traumatic incident that happened in the past, things can trigger during the wedding planning process that you may not even realize.
Right. And I'm a psychologist, so even before a psychologist, I think I was just a naturally psychologically minded person that like overanalyzes things. Really, I have a lot of anxiety, so I overanalyze things. So, you would think that would have been something I would have thought about in going dress shopping, and I didn't think that would come up. So, my point in saying this is that in wedding wellness coaching is something that I do to help people to be mentally prepared, so this could possibly come up. And if it does, what do you do? How do you pivot? How do you support yourself? How do you care for yourself so that you're not like stuck in the dress shop crying and you're not able
Yeah.
to accomplish the thing that you went there to accomplish. It's okay to feel sad and to even cry a little bit, but you don't want to get stuck there.
Is there anything also, like not just with aging and lost loved ones, but is there anything with being a second or someone might be a third or fourth, go at this. Any kind of emotional things that we should be aware of that we're not considering that might pop up during the planning process?
I think there may be a lot of social comparison that comes up. That happens anyway at any age, right?
Yeah.
But there might be more judgment, and you may not realize that you have a tendency to do that, or that you could have the tendency to do that until you're in the position that you're planning the wedding. So with social media, particularly now, there's, I think, a higher probability that we're going to start judging ourselves. Sometimes it could be more favorably once you get to that point. You could be like, okay, yes, I finally made it. Or you could be judging yourself negatively and saying, oh, I'm just now, getting married, or, I don't want to let people know that I just got to this point and I'm 54, right?
Right.
Even though you're excited and you don't want to, let people know because you're afraid that they're going to judge you.
But you should be excited, like you're in love.
Right, exactly. And so, I think that's something that we don't realize, the big influence of our peer groups, and also of social media, and just media in general, just like TV shows and things like that, how much those narratives tell us what we should be doing or how our lives should go. And so it's important for us to write our own stories.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, we should. When we're our own leading ladies, right?
Right.
Or leading man. Or leading person, however you want to identify. But, you brought up stigmas, and it's so wild to me that in this day and age, there's still these stigmas of like, if it's your second time, and not all second times are because of divorce. Sometimes, unfortunately, you're widowed, right? You never know what life's going to throw at you. But the stigmas of like, you can't wear white, as if we're all virginal to begin with the first go around anymore. You might be, but like virginal white, and like, oh, you can't wear a veil because for some reason you think veils don't work for a second time. Like, I don't understand that. And then I'm sure with being a second or third time, there's the stigma, like you mentioned, the comparison, right? So if they were at your first wedding, and if they're going to be at your second wedding, are they going to be comparing? Do they even remember it? Judgment about last name change. You just changed your last name to go with your new marriage. Like, did you have anything being said to you about that with your family or friends?
No, my family is really pretty like, if you're good with it, I'm good with it. They've always been like that. I've been very fortunate in that way. Nobody even questioned the fact that I was married once a long time ago, and then I went back to my maiden name. I think I was mentioning that to you before we started, which is a very rare thing. And before today, I don't think I had met anybody else who had done that. So
yeah, I did that. I went back to my maiden. I was like, I do not want any part of this past, like moving forward.
Yeah, I wanted to go back because I just I was like, I didn't have any kids.
But I love how you said that you wanted your daddy's last name again. Like, you want to honor him.
I wanted my daddy's last name back. Yeah, I did.
And now this time you've hyphenated it. You're keeping dad still around.
I hyphenated it the first time too.
Oh, did you?
I did. Yeah, because I don't know. It's always been very close to my dad, and I don't know. I just wanted him to be a part of my life always. So so this time it was kind of hard. And I guess that's another thing too, identity, and particularly with brides who are maybe older, 40 and older, we may have had more time in our identity as whoever, Melissa Green, right, versus, somebody who's younger. So it might be easier for them to take on, that name. You don't realize how much you identify with a name, right?
That is a fact.
Yes.
Especially in your professional life.
Yeah. So we had a joke during my wedding week. So Beyonce, the singer Beyonce, she's Beyonce Carter, Beyonce knows Carter, right? So she, at the beginning of one of her songs, she says, "Hey, Miss Carter." I don't know if any of your audience member knows that. So everybody was like, say, "Hey, Miss Carter" to me, right? So we joked about that. I had a content creator. We did a reel about it. I did because I had 5 of my best friends. And then after the wedding, I said to myself, I did all of that, "Hey, Miss Carter," and I don't even want to let go of my name yet. I didn't really tell anybody that, but I realized that after the fact, when it was time to start doing the paperwork, I was like, I was saying, "Hey, Miss Carter, hey, Miss Carter." Like, I really was ready, but I didn't realize how attached that I was to my name still. So a lot of our identity, is connected to the name, and especially professionally. So so there's a lot to try to unpack there, and thinking about like even like me talking about with my dad, what that represents. I feel like my dad was a working class dad. He was a veteran, and we'll maybe get to that a little bit later, working with the military. And so I think he was very proud of me because he didn't go to college. So I think part of that is why I want to kind of keep his name, because he liked to say, "That's Dr. Melissa," So there's so much, wrapped in the name.
Yeah, and that's what I hope everyone listening is like really taking this into consideration, because I'm very similar to you. Like when I was getting married, I was excited to take the last name because I'm like, okay, like I didn't want to say what my last name used to be. You can see it on the old Weddings Unveiled stuff, but I was like, okay, it's almost like alliteration, the way it flows and blah, blah, blah. And then when the time came to actually change it, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to let go of Haslett. Like, I've spent 30-something years of this identity and building up my career with this last name. And like, it was terrifying. But I made the leap and I went and changed everything. Unfortunately, with getting divorced, and you probably know this, it's a bitch to undo everything. It's so easy to change your name. It is so hard to unchange it.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And then, you have those emotions that you have to go through again as you're doing that.
Yeah, and then we change it back professionally if you don't keep it already professionally. And I'm finding more friends as I get older, they might change it to their spouse's last name, like for private life, but for their work life, they keep their maiden. And that's something you can do too. You can consider if you built up this huge career and you or maybe you have children from a previous relationship, which we're about to go into next. Like that's something to consider too with last names, right?
Right, right. I had put a post in one of those groups it was really an etiquette post about how if people had like doctorates and how they were presenting it on invitations, and then how they were being announced at the wedding or whatever. And people attacked me because they're like, "You should not even be considering that. You're like, kind of like, you're big selfish to even consider calling yourself doctor." Yeah, at your, yeah. And I was like, well, I was just wondering, like, how should it be announced or whatever, like, just for an etiquette thing. So it was interesting.
You should be proud. You're a damn doctor. Like you earned it.
And I was like, it wasn't an ego thing either, really.
No.
It was interesting to me because it kind of made me think that people were really seeing themselves as, I hate to say this, kind of
like less than?
Like the property of the
yeah.
But anyway, of their spouse and not their own. They didn't have their individuality.
Yeah.
Like they felt like they're like, this is your husband's moment, like, so to speak, like, so you should honor him.
So if he was a doctor, then it would be okay, but if he's not a doctor,
and that's how, and I think that probably was the case. But anyway, this is kind of off the topic, but it just goes to show, like, names and all of that, and how meaningful it can be to somebody. And so I think the misses had a lot more weight to people than having, a credential that they had worked for. That was more valuable to
Right.
probably more of the women than not, which was surprising to me. So I actually went to my husband and I was like, "Would this be offensive to you?" And he was like, "Absolutely not. Like that's something that you earned." But I didn't.
Yeah, this is going to be a forward discussion. I want to deep dive in more on another episode. Like, we need to discuss this more about, like, the
Yeah.
attachment to names, especially with, like, the Mrs. and the Miss and Misters and whatever. Stay tuned, guys. We're going to talk about that a lot more later. Imagine a wedding day where each detail is already taken care of, allowing you to savor every moment. At Sandals, your dream wedding can finally become a reality. From intimate elopements to grand celebrations, Sandals offers customizable packages for every size and style. Plus, everything is included: your accommodations, gourmet dining, premium drinks, and all your wedding services. You get a dedicated wedding planner and an on-site team to manage everything from ceremony to reception. And here's a really sweet deal. Stay 7 nights or longer in a club or butler level room, and you'll receive their Sweetheart Wedding Package, completely on them. That means your ceremony, decor, and even a delicious 2-tier wedding cake. For those of you who really want to be sure, you can even test drive your wedding experience before you book it. Stop dreaming and start planning. Head over to sandals.com today or call 1-877-SANDALS to create your unforgettable wedding experience. If your partner or you yourself have children, how is that with incorporating, especially in a second marriage, or if they're older children, they're adults, it's a different ballgame than even if they're little ones. So talk to us about how to navigate that.
So that can be very tricky. So I don't have any children, and my husband has 2 adult children. And sometimes people think with adult children, like it's not that big of a thing, but it can be even more of a concern with adult children. Um, so children in general, right, can feel like they're being replaced, or they can just feel like they're being displaced, right? So it's important for the parent to reinforce their love and make sure that they're letting their child know that this new person that's coming into their lives is not like it's not replacing their parent. The person is not going to take their love that they have for them. My sister used to always say that when she married her husband would always tell his children from his first spouse that I have enough love for all of you. And I thought that was so sweet. And he was such a sweet person too. And I think that's the point, to make sure that you let them know that you have enough love for everybody and that it's not a competition. That's what
Right.
I think sometimes people will see, that this new person is somebody that I have to compete with for my parents' love. And it's not a competition, and it's not a more or less than. It's just a different kind of love. And, you need to let your child know that you still love them and that you're bringing a new person in. But I also think it's important to not over accommodate for the child.
Ooh, good point.
So you want to let them know that you love them, but also, sometimes you might get tested, right? The parent may get tested and be placed in tricky situations, and they need to let their child know that the new relationship is the foundation, and that you still love the child, but you're building from that foundation with your partner.
What do you do if the child, whether it be a teenager or an adult, will go more the older route with this, is like, I'm not supporting this remarriage. Maybe they don't like hate the new partner, but like they just don't like the idea of them getting married again. And they're very resistant, and they're not wanting to participate, or they're making it difficult in the planning process. How do we cope with these emotions from the child?
Well, I think the first thing is, validating and normalizing their experience and their emotions, because they have the right to feel the way that they feel. They're not always going to agree or like everything that you do, and that's okay. Now, if they're teenagers, it can be tricky because they still may have to participate in some things.
And they live there.
Yeah, if they live with you, they can't just like be at home. I don't know. I think, well, I'm a psychologist, so of course I'm going to advocate for um, counseling, or at least making an attempt to have them talk to somebody who is neutral. So opening up that door, give them the opportunity to talk to somebody that maybe they will see as an ally or an advocate for them, or somebody that can help them to really express themselves in the way that they feel like, that they're getting their point across. Because, a teenager may feel like they're saying things that aren't being heard, or they're not being responded to in the way that they, want someone to respond to. And sometimes they're not going to even be open to that. So it can be a challenge, and I think the parent has to change their expectation, because the expectation most likely is going to be that as soon as I introduce this new person, everything is going to be perfect. Everybody's going to love everybody, and we're going to, oftentimes that's what, the expectation is, or that's what the belief is. And so you have to be really flexible with your thinking about how things could, carry out. And be open to pivoting and making new suggestions and trying different things. Yeah. It's a trial and error kind of
Yeah.
situation, just like life in general. But, you're dealing with somebody else's life, and you don't have much control. I mean, maybe with a teenager, you can kind of limit some of the things that they can do, but ultimately you can't control everything that they do, and whether or not they, participate or like it, and they're going to have to do that at their own pace.
You can't force them to like your partner or like the situation, but I'm a huge advocate, as everyone knows, for therapy and counseling. So co-sign with you on that. I think if more people did go to counseling sessions or therapy, even just once a year, like an annual physical checkup, but you get the emotional and mental one, I think it would work wonders in this world. We started mentioning military, and I'd like to move on to this because I think it's a really important topic that doesn't get discussed enough. So for those that are a military spouse to be, and you're in the planning process or about to be, let's talk about some of the challenges and the emotional stakes that are at play, because it's a lot different than non-military people planning a wedding.
I've worked with military active duty as well as veterans for about 14 years now, actually. So it's been a while. And mostly I've worked, with the person who's in the military, but I have done some work with spouses as well. And, trying to maintain that intimacy and closeness in the relationship is always a challenge. It's so because of things like deployments and the unpredictability of the scheduling. Yeah, oftentimes, even when they're told what they're going to do, it changes uh, quickly, or at least that's what I'm told, and what I've experienced from.
My brother's in the Navy, and he's actually, by the time this is airing, he'll be getting ready to go back out to sea for sea duty on an aircraft carrier. And so I've seen this firsthand with him and my sister-in-law, Mandy. Like, it's tough.
Right, right. And so I worked on a military installation for about 5 years, and
Yeah.
um, so I saw it from that perspective, the lifestyle and all of that. For those people who are in the military, there are actually a lot of resources that are available within, but sometimes there are some barriers as far as accessing, because one, people, they don't know what the resources are, or there's a stigma. I mean, despite what's out there in the media, there is still a big stigma for seeking support on
Oh.
some of the military installations. But there are things like family readiness officers who are civilians in a lot of the divisions, who are there to mostly work with spouses, and they have different groups and things that they put together to support spouses. But I think it's important for couples, military couples, to establish certain types of rituals of connection so that they are able to maintain their connection or their intimacy as much as possible, whether they're physically together or apart. So particularly if they're planning a wedding, there are little things that they can do that seem like insignificant, but that can kind of help keep that spark. Like I think it's like Zola, or I don't know if I should be mentioning names, but anyways, they have
It's good.
those countdown calendars. Like I have one on my, they could both put the countdown calendar on their phones, right, for the wedding. So they could create like a wedding playlist that they both listen to, that they both created, things like that. Using technology a lot. Obviously they could do video calls. I remember that when I used to do treatments, I had several service members that would say that they would have video calls until they would both fall asleep on the video. They would talk until they fell asleep. I
Oh, that's
actually
cute.
saw someone this week who told me that they got married through video. They had
They did a
someone married.
virtual wedding?
They did but they were both together, but the person who married them was online because they
Oh,
needed to do it quickly. So a lot of them have found, ways to do it, to do things, and very creatively.
yeah.
But yeah, I think using technology, there are lots of ways to try to keep that connection going. There are apps where you can. I'm an advocate of John and Julie Gottman's work from the Gottman Institute.
I love the Gottmans.
Me too. I did the level 1 Gottman training, and I want to do more. But my husband and I use the Gottman decks. They have the card
Yeah.
deck, whatever. It's a app, and so they could do that virtually.
Do you love using it? Because I've been curious about it.
I do. So we were long distance, my husband and I, for a few months before he moved here. So we did that. And you can pick a topic and just talk about, and that really helps to build the intimacy. Sometimes when you are apart, I think that you're talking about things that are more important than when you're seeing each other every day.
Yeah.
So
It's like the early courting period all over again, right? Where you're, what's your take on, this religion or politics, or, it's no more of the day-to-day fluff that you kind of fall into if you're not paying attention, because you could easily just, kind of lose that inquisitiveness of your partner, right?
Right. Yeah. So work on building your love maps, as the Gottmans would say.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you're bringing them up, because I'm a huge fan of the Gottmans. And I was actually just saying not too long ago to my boyfriend, Dave, like, meeting them are like one of the people on my bucket list. Like, before, like, I kick the bucket or they do, like, I have to meet them. And they're like the dinner guest thing, the Gottmans are up there on my list of who I would love to see, because their relationship theories are so accurate and so mind-blowing sometimes when you hear, like, there are different interviews on podcasts or TED Talks or whatever, like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, like how you know that a relationship's doomed. Like I wish I knew that sooner, because I would have seen the patterns in my relationships and be like, oh my God, I'm at contempt. It's over. Like,
and their research, I mean, and they claim that they can predict divorce, like with like 90-something% accuracy after just looking at, was it like, I don't know, 10 minutes or something?
I
of
think
a
it's 10
clip
minutes,
of,
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yes, I love their work too. My husband and I we did a Gottman workshop, a day before before we got married. Yeah. So.
Oh, so like another form of premarital counseling.
Yeah, we did that, and we also did premarital counseling. So I was like, I got to practice what I preach, right?
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. So with military, like if someone listening is in the middle of planning a wedding, but their partner is deployed, that has to be so hard because you don't have them accessible to help with these different planning things, but they have to make these decisions to kind of keep the process going, you know? Because like I know with my brother, when he's on deployment, he can talk to us or my sister-in-law very vaguely, occasional messages. It used to be letters back in the day. Now they have certain avenues of electronic messaging, but it's hard. You can't always be, hey, what do you think about this cake flavor? Like you have to make a decision if you want to still have the wedding in the state when you know that they should be returning, hopefully, which is another stressor. But how can we help ease someone that's navigating that? Because that's got to be so hard.
I think in the beginning of the planning, it's important maybe to assign responsibilities, and that probably can alleviate some of the stress of the person that is back at home, so that you don't feel like, oh, maybe I might make the wrong decision and the other person is going to be upset. So if the partner that's deployed knows that I'm going to pick the I don't know, the flowers, then
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what I pick because we already agreed in the beginning. So in the beginning, like before, as soon as you guys decide you're going to get married and before the partner that's in the military gets deployed, just say, okay, we're going to get married. Let's go ahead and decide like who will do what. And, um, you know, if you happen to get deployed or we know that you'll probably be deployed or that you'll probably, have to do sometimes they have to do these trainings and they're away for a while and they don't have access or, they just aren't able to, do wedding planning stuff or,
Yeah.
just not capable of doing it at the time,
Yeah.
then they will already have their designated list of things to do. So just trying to think about it beforehand. And I know that can be hard, but if as soon as you decide that you want to get married and want to have a wedding, if you can come up with, sort of a list of things and it doesn't have to be equal in number. It can be, the person who's staying back can do 10 things and the person who's deploying can do 3 things so that they can feel like they're contributing.
Or at least say, here are things that I would like. I may not be able to help order them or actually physically do them in time, especially if it's going to be a close, like returning from deployment by wedding time situation. But at least like, hey, I like these flavors and I like these colors and I like this kind of
Right.
idea. So, do with that as you think, but like, here's what I'm kind of feeling.
Or they could do, like my ex-husband did. I gave him a list of things. He could say, done it. And then before he read it, and then you don't have to worry about their input. You can just do what you want to do now. Yeah.
I like it. Delegate, right? Tasks. Especially with men, there seems to be like more of I just need you to like give me a point A to point B and I can do that. And, as women, we tend to be a little bit more communicative and a little bit more detailed. Not trying to, put male and female in a certain bucket, but like, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you are the professional.
That is, it's very true from what I've seen. Yeah.
So, unfortunately, with military, a lot of people that have been in service for a while and have been through deployments, we have to face trauma, right? And even the spouse or the significant other that isn't being deployed, there's certain traumas and emotional issues that they might be dealing with having a partner. Like you're afraid your partner might get injured or worse, right? So how do we face the different traumas that military partners have to face?
So I think so generally what happens when someone deploys, they come back, they go through a reintegration process where they meet with different groups that are supposed to help them like reintegrate back into society. But what I would see is that a lot of times they would say, I'm fine, I'm fine. And even now that I still work with a lot of military and veterans, and they will say that because they want to continue doing the job, they may not be as forthcoming as they should. But I think that's changing a little bit. They do have people available to support them. So before ever deploying, they should be encouraged to be open when they come back, right? So that they can get the support that they need when they do come back. That's number one. So before ever deploying, just, letting them know that it's okay that if they come back and they have experienced some type of trauma that, they can talk about it or they should talk about it. That's number one. And just being open and available to them to talk to you as the partner or the spouse, and also recognizing that they might not want to talk to you. And most of the time, what I've seen is that they don't want to talk to their partner about it, and being okay with that, because they don't want them to know the things that they experience. They don't want them to feel sorry for them. They don't want them to feel like they're no longer capable of doing the things that they could do before, even though
there's shame.
Yeah, they're literally looking at them like struggling, but they don't. What I've heard and what I still hear is that, there's that pride piece there. So they feel like it's making them more vulnerable if they're actually sharing the story. I've seen Vietnam veterans who tell me that they had, and I mean like within the last, 2 or 3 years, who never told their spouses things that they've experienced, right? So as a partner, you want to know the most intimate things about your spouse, but sometimes they're not telling you because they're trying to protect you, right? And they're trying to protect you because they feel like if they tell you, that's going to make them more vulnerable and not be able to protect you, because they feel like it's going to make them cry and it's going to make them weak, so to speak.
Another stigma.
Right, another stigma. And I know these are broad generalizations, but this is just from my experience of working with the military population for 14 years. So obviously it's not everybody, but it's it's a pretty big database of people, because for a while I was only doing combat trauma therapy. So just for the spouses to hear that it's not necessarily about them, because I think that's often how it's perceived, is that it's about them, but it's really more what I see, to protect them. So being supportive in the way that you can, by helping them to have routines and consistency, with trauma, with anxiety. The thing that makes it worse is having chaos, right? So with anxiety, we need predictability. Trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder used to be an anxiety disorder, and I don't want to get too clinical, but with anxiety, the thing, it's a fear of the unknown. And when we don't have order, we are more anxious, right? So
our nervous system is overactive, overdrive.
Right. So if you have a schedule, if you have predictability, if you have routine, then you can relax. And when you can relax, then you can be more involved. Then you can have that social engagement and have that connection. But if you don't have that, then you're all about survival. And so a lot of times, the service members, when they come back, they're just about survival. So their nervous system does not recalibrate back to its baseline. So they're on, fight or flight. And so they generalize everything is a threat, right? That's the safest thing, or in their mind, or even it's not even in their mind, it's in their nervous system, like you said, because sometimes it's not conscious. Everything is a threat. It's the same level of threat. And that feels safe, but really it's not safe, because now you're not even able to distinguish, like, what's a low level threat, what's a high level threat, what's a mid level threat. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really realize the in-depth to all of this until I read The Body Keeps the Score, which I just mentioned actually in the last episode. But that book detailing how veterans go through that, but not just veterans, but it applies to all of us that have been through a trauma disorder. Like if you've been, like I've gone through sexual assault and I've had other childhood things and friends committed suicide and like all these different things, they're trauma, right? And it stores in your body and comes out in different ways. And so, to your point, like with military in particular, like you are in fight or flight because you've been through all this situation.
Right.
So
right.
It has to take a lot longer, I would imagine, because of some of the things that you see or have to do in that position.
It's a normal response to stress. It's not even just somebody that's experienced trauma. But because we all have that, fight or flight reaction to some kind of stressor, right? But when it's chronic, that's when it's, more pathological. And it stays at that higher level.
The four are fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right?
Yeah. So, I love that book too. And when I was working with the military, there was a yoga teacher that came to work with the service members that I was treating. And, she taught them, like about the breathing and all of that. And I was like, oh, this was really cool because it helped them to feel safe. They learned how to regulate their nervous system a little bit. And so from there, I decided that I wanted to learn more about that. And so I did a yoga teacher training and I incorporate that into my wedding wellness stuff now because I think it's helpful in any type of like stressful situation, just doing the deep breathing. And I saw that the guys that I was working with, they felt like at first they were like, "I'm not doing yoga. I'm not doing yoga." And I'm like, "Well, you got to do it because they said we got to do it, and I'm going to be in there with you." And then they started asking for the yoga teacher to come, and so they felt empowered because it helped them to feel like, okay, I can calm myself a little bit. And then from there, they were a little bit more available to doing like some of the talk therapy and stuff like that. So
every time a guy says something like negative about yoga, I always say to them, because it's come up a few times over the years, but I always say to them, I'm like, well, football players do yoga and ballet. So let's get over it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I always thought that was funny because they're like, no. And then they were asking, when is she coming back?
So for anyone wedding planning right now, military or not, what are some other soothing, calming, stress-free things that we can do to help regulate our nervous systems? Because, we mentioned trauma, which is an extreme end, but sometimes just your mom's pissing you off and like you just need to calm it down. So how can we regulate ourselves?
Breathing exercises. There are lots of different breathing exercises. So that's my go-to. So I don't know if you want me to talk specifically, but there are lots of different breathing exercises, and people can look those up. But I like box breathing or square breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. So you're just visualizing the shape of a square. I also like doing things that there's some tactile involvement. So you're kind of focusing on something. So there's something called like even breathing. So you're having your hands out like this. So you're tapping and you're doing this. So breathing in for 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's even breathing. So there are lots of different breathing techniques and things that you can do and nobody knows you're doing it. Like I could be sitting here, just kind of doing that. Like if I'm in a meeting or something and I'm not talking and I'm listening, you can do it like with your fingers, inhale, down,
if you're
exhale.
listening to the audio, she's doing different, we've done a couple different hand techniques. If you're having a chance to watch on YouTube, obviously you're seeing all this, but if you're listening to the audio, the box breathing, and then what is this one called that we can look up?
Oh,
the
this
one you're just
right
doing?
here, finger tracing.
Yes.
It's a finger tracing. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. I forgot. This is
we have both for audio and video.
Yes,
so
so
I just want to make sure people listening have a better understanding of what we're doing.
So there's another technique that I like. It's called PFAT. That's the acronym. PFAT. So it's really just a quick check-in. So the P is for what physical or physiological reaction. So if you notice that, like, you're starting to feel a little bit stressed, so it's an assessment, basically. So,
Yeah.
I mean, do I have tension? So a lot of times I notice that my shoulders are like this. Do I have tension in my shoulders? Am I breathing heavily? The F is like what feelings, so what emotions. The A is for how do I appear? So if somebody walked up, I mean, do I look like I'm pissed off? Am I like this? Or do I look sad? The T is what thoughts, so it's a way to quickly kind of assess what's going on and to bring you back. It's also a grounding, so it brings you back
Yeah.
into the present moment, right? And kind of shift you from that, like emotional mind to more of a rational mind. And you can, kind of help you to move forward and really see like what's going on. I like music. I love music. So
Yeah.
there are a couple of things that I would advise people to do is to create like playlists like that help you to feel good. So if there's certain songs that you like, during my wedding planning, there were a couple of songs that I would listen to. Actually, there's one song that I don't know if you've heard of this that is supposed to reduce anxiety. It's called Waitlist by Marconi Union. There are a couple of
No.
research studies that says it reduces anxiety by like 60%. Well, in a couple of studies, yeah.
Right.
Marconi Union Waitlist. It's just an instrumental. Yeah, so I listen to that a lot. But then there are also like reggae and hip hop songs that I listen to that I just like that are fun. So music. So those are some things that I think that people can do to help.
I love that. And I do believe that music heals and it helps. So I love the playlist idea. I'm definitely going to check that song out because as someone that has a little more of an anxious personality, it's always good to find a song that can help ground me a little bit. But you've given so much great advice and I hate that we have to like wrap this up. But I want to know, Melissa, what is in your wedding fuck it bucket?
So I think in general, I think just going with the flow of what other people want, that's in there. But I think the traditional bridal party, I'm kind of over that. I love my friends. I had my 5 best friends. That's my something blue crew. But they just, I gradually added them, no pressure. Like if you want to wear a blue dress, wear whatever blue dress you want. If not, that's fine. I'd like for you to be a part of it.
I loved your getting ready videos with them on your Instagram.
Yeah, and they were the same 5 that were in my first wedding. So we've been, friends for 20 plus years. All of one of them is my cousin, and like 2 of them I grew up with, and 3 of them were my college friends. So yeah, so that there's in those groups that I mentioned, I saw people like being so upset because people weren't like ending their lives because of what they wanted them to do for their wedding. So
I'm going to add to my fuck it bucket that whole thing about being anti having doctor on invitations and that if the spouse isn't.
I know.
That's definitely in my fuck it bucket forever.
Yes.
If you earn that doctorate, if your partner is not for it, then you might need to rethink your partner. Like
I know. Then you might need to put him in there. Yeah.
Yeah, or he needs to go get some therapy or she for having some pride issues. Like
right.
Be proud of yourself. Okay, final question. What is your all-time favorite celebrity or royal wedding?
I saw, this one wasn't actually published, I don't think, but I saw enough social media clips. This was Portia Williams. And unfortunately, she's divorced now, but she married that Simon Guobadia. And I love that she had an African-centered wedding. He was from Nigeria. So my first wedding was actually an African-centered and African-inspired wedding. And this time we incorporated African. I used to do African dancing. So I flew in my African dance teacher from Atlanta and a drummer. And I had a Hawaiian officiant. So we did lei exchange, and we actually said some Hawaiian vows. So I love when people incorporate their cultural traditions. I love that. I love anything that's like authentic to who the person is. I'm always for like not going with the, you know, with the the group or whatever. I mean, that's fine, but be yourself.
Be yourself. Yeah, I'm with you. And I love that you did all of that, both weddings. And for those that don't know who Portia Williams is, she is one of the stars of Real Housewives of Atlanta. Is she on this season currently?
I don't know, because I really haven't watched it.
She's kind of going off and on.
Yeah.
But look it up. That was a fun wedding. I remember the visuals from that. Yeah, very cool. So, Dr. Melissa Green Carter, how can we get more information on you and your company?
So you can find me on Instagram. It's at dr.melgreen. And my website is myresiliencestudio.com.
Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.